back. WNST, Tassel, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. If this isn't one of the top 5 segments of this year, any year, and Moeller's always telling me, well, James Miller will be better than Rob Roblin. Damon Agarty's going to be here later. I got Alan McCallum. Rob Roblin is on my program for the very first time in 31 years. And as much as I love Jane for her journalism,
you told me you had a man crush on Rob.
You were always my favorite. And Marty Bass knows this. And he was my
Marty.
friend. You know what I mean? Like in real life, we're friends. I don't know you well, but like all those Preaknesses that you were at in the infield, and I'm going to have a margarita to honor you here on the program here.
I love me some tequila, though.
Well, you're in the right place. We're in El Guapo. We're in Catonsville. Don Moeller and I doing Baltimore Positive. I'm embarrassed that it took us 3.5 years of Moeller and I doing this to finally get you on the program. And we had a plague in the middle of this. We dealt with the Trump president. We had all this happening since we started the show. I am honored that you are spending an hour with me today.
I've always liked you. My son is a huge fan of yours.
That's going to make me cry, Rob.
You know, he really is.
Is that Steven?
He said, no, that's Frank.
Okay.
Frank.
Okay.
And Steven
Why?
listens to.
What did I do?
Now he says the truth. He says what's going on.
Now you're pumping him up.
When I have a journalist telling me I do the truth.
You know, like there's no bull. He calls it what it is. And you do.
It's an Ekman thing.
Yeah.
It's right there.
Man, I loved Ekman.
I know you did.
Who's going to win the game, Charlie? Whoever gets the most points.
One of my all-time buddies in Rob Roblin, they knew when Rob came out to cover a story in the county or the school system, you had to block in a little extra time because it was going to take us 20 or 30 minutes.
I've known Don since 1982. He was my high school guidance counselor, right? And I don't think we've ever been apart. I can't remember. Even when I left high school, I came back, saw Mr. Moeller, and then he was at Sparrows Point, which is right down the road, and I visited him down there. So we've always been in each other's lives. And I went on the radio in 91, late 91, and Don was a part of my first huddle on opening day when Sutcliffe pitched at the Camden Yards. Don was doing a show with me that day, so that's how far back we are. He's always told me how well he knew you, and you guys were like real friends in the real world. And I was always like, man, I wish I could get Rob on. But the BAL people hated me forever. They would never let you on my show. You were never allowed on my show.
Look at this.
Wait a minute.
Look at this,
we
Rob
got
Roblin.
So to honor Rob Roblin here,
Holy.
I want a picture of this, man.
Look at this,
To
Rob
honor
Roblin.
Julio Bermejo, this is an Herradura silver
I'm gonna
tequila.
photograph you and Rob with
Well,
the.
I've always wanted to have a mark because I never drank with Rob on Preakness Day. And I always felt like I should have. I felt like I was a part of what you were doing on Preakness Days. So I'm here to. How are you? What are you doing with your real life? Tell them because he knows what you do. You guys are
I don't do
friends.
anything. I mean, I really don't. I am retired. I'm a bum. I'm doing what I do well. Nothing. I watch stupid movies all the time. I've got 2 cats. I've got a dog.
What are their names?
Lucky and Sly.
Nester's
I love
a cat
my
guy.
cat.
You know,
I
I love
her
my
so
cats. And I have grandchildren. I have 6 grandchildren. And I go to games. I go to my Robbie's 13, little Robbie, and Rachel is 10. And I've got 2 new grandsons that are 4 years old and 6. And I've got 2 older ones. One's graduating from college from the University of Nebraska. So I lost my wife 5.5 years ago. And it messed me up. And to say the least. But I'm so grateful because I didn't want kids.
Right.
I didn't want kids. I was married before and had one. I had none. My wife says, you're having 2. Did not one, and I'm so grateful because she was a strong East Baltimore Greek-American woman and the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
Rob,
and
you
so I'm very
and
lucky.
Mary, Rob, it was a love story.
Oh, man. We drove each other nuts.
You were a love story, though.
You're talking about a love story. And I saw what your wife went through, and I think she is beautiful.
Thank you. I tell her every day.
And you should. You better tell her more than once. And I cry a lot now. I'll cry over a John Wayne Cowboy
If I
movie.
lost my wife, it would be 8 years next week that my wife was diagnosed, March 20th.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, and see, I've beaten cancer, and I've had open heart surgery, and I had pneumonia 3 or 4 years ago and almost died, so I'm lucky to be here.
You're going nowhere. You're going to stay
lucky
here and
to
drink
be here.
tequila with me all night. El Guapo.
Well, you know, I was listening to you guys talk about Baltimore. I love this city, and it's given me so much. It gave me a reason to live. It gave me my wife, and you know how much I love sports. And my sons played basketball at Bentlow Recreation Center. When they were a kid, I took them down to the west side to play to the greatest coach to ever walk on a court, in my opinion, Coach Herman Johnson.
You've talked about Herman for 30 years.
He passed away a little over a year ago. And Coach Herman didn't just win games. He saved lives. And he saved more lives in this city than anybody I know. And there are kids that are adults now that are walking around doing with great jobs, with educations, doing so well, and they would not be doing that if it wasn't for Coach Herman. The most honorable man I've ever met.
I credit Moeller for all my success.
Whoa.
I do.
But Rob,
the Moeller family, let me tell you something. His mother, because my son played at Catonsville High School.
with Brendan.
With Brendan, yeah.
Mike's son, Brendan.
Mike's son, and we go to the games. His mother, the kids loved her. They called her Q-Tip.
Because of her white hair.
Hair.
They dedicated a special part of the bleachers when she passed
away.
Well,
your mother was sports all.
Oh, my
Lord.
God. Rob will tell you.
Boy, the boys loved her. I loved her. She was that. When she passed away, man, that whole town, everybody was.
When's the first time you guys met?
Then.
Well, we knew each other through reporting and
through
coverage
education
before then. But when Stephen ended up at Catonsville,
yeah,
I laugh. Rob and I have our moments of getting a little emotional.
So hold on, your son
game.
was a student at his high school.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm getting that clear. I'm
Yes.
getting clarity.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, and he was the point guard.
Yeah.
And he and Brendan were good. Tell Nestor about the night. It's still funny. The night that Brendan dunked for the first time.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He didn't know. Brendan was an unbelievable athlete.
Okay.
And I'm going by what Stephen says. You know, he was fast as lightning, but he didn't look it. When you'd see him run, you did not think he was that fast. But he said, Dad, every time we do suicides, he's always lapping everybody. And he won a national championship in lacrosse at Virginia.
Virginia, yeah.
Yeah. And
Sister didn't do bad in North Carolina.
if he would have worked on his basketball game, he would have been a D1 player.
She'd be happy I knew that, right?
She would be very happy you knew she played a
Shout
but
out,
Rob was afraid it was my brother that was going to have the heart attack when Brendan dunked, right?
We
might have been the last game.
Yeah, I think it was, but he dunked it.
I've never done that.
I've never done that either. And
So-
I'm 6'2", so that tells you something
We
there.
can't have Rob Roblin on, and you and I have talked off air, Rob, a lot. You have, and it always came through in your reporting. You have strong views on the social fabric. And
Yes.
who we are and what we ought to be. And I always kid, you're a kid that grew up, I think, in Mississippi
And Alabama, yeah.
and Alabama.
I want to hear that.
A child of the South.
Well,
right.
first I want to give you this with the beer going right now and your tone, and like if people say that about me, if they've been listening a long time, they know my voice. It's
Yeah.
distinctive, I
People
guess,
know
in
my
some way,
voice,
right?
yeah.
Your voice. It's like Burl Ives. You've got to. I want you to sing "Have a Holly Jolly."
Holy
Christmas."
mackerel! There we go.
You know, but that southernness that sort of
a
comes
twang.
comes
I like it.
through you.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
and
tell us about the South you grew up in.
Larry Medoff and I,
What
Larry,
year were you born?
1946.
Okay, so you're there.
My parents were born, and I was born in Canada, Toronto, Canada. My father was a minister, and he said the Lord called him and told him to go to Mississippi and take a church. I think the Lord got the wrong number, to be honest with you. I think he just picked up. So at any rate, and I actually remember it, and I was 2 or 3 years old, loading up the car and driving to Mississippi. My poor mother moved into a home without running water, without indoor plumbing, and he was a preacher at a small church. We stayed down there, and they both died down there. My mother died when I was 12, my father when I was 16, and I was raised down there. But you see, I was raised by Canadians, so I was never like there. I was different, and I kind of like that.
Your mom and dad were
how
strangers.
old were you when you showed up down there?
2 years old.
Oh, okay, so you know no life in Canada at all.
Well, we would go
Okay.
back in the winter.
Okay.
In the summer. We go back to Toronto to visit family until my mother died, usually once or twice a year. And we'd stop in Chicago or Detroit on the way up or down. I have an aunt that lived in Chicago, and my father's best friend lived in Detroit.
So you saw some things.
I saw Rocky Colavito play, saw Al Kaline play. You know,
How'd you become such a sports fan down in the South?
I played it. That's all you did back then, man. That's all you did, play football and basketball.
That is the South, right?
That is the South. That's what you did. You got a court, you ran, and you played. And
So what was the South that Rob Roblin grew up in? I mean, you're going to school down there.
Yep.
It's even
I'm sorry.
pre-integration
Yep.
by far. So
I went to elementary school, middle school, high school, and it was into college before I went to school with an African American. And her name was Elaine Armstrong. She was the first African American to go to the University of Southern Mississippi. That's where I graduated from, where I went to school.
You and Brett Favre.
Yeah, but he was long after me. I went on a trip with Larry down to Mississippi. My stepmother, who died in her sleep at 106 years old, she was cremated, and we buried her down there. And we went on a road trip. And I pointed out, I said, you use the word white privilege. I'm going to point it out. See that African-American police officer? When I was a kid, there was no such thing. You see that African-American lady working there at the front desk at the motel? There was no such thing. There was not allowed.
So you were 12 years old in 1958, right? So that was your 12 years old, 1958, Lower Mississippi, right?
Yeah, this is in Mississippi and Alabama. No blacks in my school, no African Americans anywhere. I remember in college almost getting in a fist fight, arguing with a guy as to whether or not an African American was a human being or an animal.
Well,
that's true.
Well, Rob, where that I want to dig down on that a little bit, because how does a Rob Roblin growing up in that South not reflect the values of that South? Because you didn't from Jump Street. How does that happen?
I wasn't taught that way. I was taught that everyone was equal. My father actually believed in the Bible, and which is inclusive of everyone. And he actually preached that, and he did that. I remember when I was in the 3rd or 4th grade, he was walking in Tupelo, Mississippi, and he met an African-American minister when they started talking. My father was like me, talked with everyone.
This must be 54, 55, right?
Yeah, 54, 55.
All right.
And they were talking about their congregations. Well, the African-American minister said, I have a problem because a lot of people in our congregation can't read or write. And so we're trying to get everyone where they can read and write. And he said, but I got a problem. I don't have enough teachers. Well, my father said, he looked at it as God calling him. He says, well, I'll help. I can't do it every night, but I can help. You would do that? Yeah, of course I will. I'll teach. And so I remember on Wednesday night prayer meeting, because my father was a Baptist minister, him telling the congregation that he was going to be going with his African-American congregation to help teach reading and writing to his members of his congregation. You wouldn't believe it.
They thought he was a devil.
Oh, the N-word was thrown out. You ain't doing it, and you're not doing it. My father did not back down from anybody. Before he found God, he ran a floating dice game and did muscle work for the mob in Toronto.
He was Nathan Detroit
at
before
12 years old, he was 6'4", 185, and he loved fist fighting. He loved it, and but he would not back down. He said, God called me, and I'm going to do it, and he did it. And I said, oh, my God, the Klan's going to come. They're going to kill us all. I hope it doesn't get out. And it didn't, and he did, and we eventually moved to another town.
But teaching young African Americans to read and write would have made you open to having.
Vernon Damer, I knew his son. His father got firebombed and killed, and his sister had to smell her father's flesh burning because he was getting people to vote in Laurel, Mississippi. I mean, this is not uncommon. I went on my lunch break working at Fine Brothers Madison store to the Vernon Damer case. It was the first all-white jury to convict a white of killing an African-American in the state of Mississippi.
What year was this?
Gosh, I guess, I don't know, 60s.
60s, okay.
Yeah, 60s.
So how does Rob Roblin, you come up from this, you're growing up in the segregated South, you end up in college. How does Rob Roblin drift to journalism?
Well, I went to Mardi Gras when I was 19, and I didn't come home for 2 years. I had a hell of a party, boy.
You got any pictures?
No, I don't have any pictures. I ended up in San Francisco. I ended up in Arizona working for a rock and roll band that later became Alice Cooper. So that tells you what my life was. And then I said, I got to do something. I can't just be a bum the rest of my life. I got to work somewhere. And it hit. I wanted to be a rock and roll star, but I had a couple of problems. I couldn't sing and I couldn't play an instrument.
All right.
Yes,
I tell people I wanted to play shortstop for the Orioles, but I couldn't hit a curve. I couldn't run.
That's a challenge. It's a challenge.
Right.
So then I said, I'll be a disc jockey.
All
so
right.
I was going to college, and it hit me one day. I'll be a disc
I got
jockey.
a little Johnny fever in you.
Yeah,
I see that.
And,
Yeah.
So then I
Johnny
majored in radio and television, minored in theater, and got my degree and couldn't get a job.
Where'd you go?
Southern Mississippi.
Southern Mississippi.
Yes,
Okay.
Yes, indeed. My stepmother went there when it was Mississippi Normal School. She was born in 1906, and my brother went there. He played in the band. My brother was an opera singer and 3-octave Irish tenor voice. Sang at the New Orleans Opera House a couple of times. So he was very
Was that
talented.
during the Mardi Gras, during the 2-year period there?
No, that was before. So I had none of that talent at all. But my father gave me something, and you talk about what Coach Herman did in his life and what people do. It's called self-confidence. And after my mother died, he saw I did not have self-confidence. You know, I didn't like myself. I didn't think I was good looking. I didn't think I was smart. I didn't think I had talent. I didn't tell him that. He saw it. And he saw through sports. He knew I had heart. It wasn't very good, but I had heart.
But you were trying.
No, and I was nasty, and I had a nasty attitude. And it gave me, especially in football, and, you know, I'd never liked fist fighting. But I loved football, playing. I had the helmet on. I didn't think I could get hurt and didn't get hurt. You know, I was 6'2", 155, and I ran a 100-yard dash and 10 flat. And you could head slap back then. You could cross body block. You could do all kinds of stuff you can't do now. And you also played every play of every game. I never walked off the court one time. I'm off the field one time. And I was very good. I mean, I turned out to be really good. And we had a good team. And we got everybody on the team was heavier than me, even the darn quarterback, you know. And but through that, he gave me self-confidence. And ironically, going on the road for 2 years. I ate. I got by somehow. I don't know how. But I had confidence. So being rejected didn't bother me. And I had a southern accent, and I talk like that when I want to. And that's how I talked all the time. You don't get many jobs saying, "How y'all doing on the radio this morning? We go play a song
Where did you
for
get your first gig?
a little radio station in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. But I literally sat on the commode every day for 2 years, reading the newspaper from beginning to end to get that out of my accent done.
You know, but you were practicing your dialect.
Practicing.
Wow.
You know, and I had a high school
Peter
teacher.
Piper picked
Do you have
the
any
peck.
old tapes of you from the early 70s where you really twanging?
I've got tapes going back, I got 2-inch tapes going back to the 70s.
My Baltimore accent in the early 90s. Woo!
Yeah, oh yeah. Now I use it if I choose to, I can have no accent at all. You know, but I've learned to have, I call them colloquialisms.
I give you Burl Ives.
Yeah. But,
Yeah, you don't like that?
oh yeah, that's
Burl
fine.
Ives had the syrupy voice of the South, right?
Well,
Charles
I'm impressed.
Charles Kuralt was my hero.
All right.
And Charles Kuralt could read the damn phone book, and he could make you cry.
Oh, no.
I mean, Charles, and that's
Listen,
James Earl Jones.
I interviewed him
yeah.
2 times. James Earl Jones.
As someone who has worked unsuccessfully for many years on his own Baltimore accent, it is not easy to lose an accent. And
you haven't lost yours.
No, I have not. I have not.
Ain't lost mine, Owen.
I haven't
I
lost
can turn on my Dundalk in a moment.
Believe it or not, it has gotten better, which tells you how bad it was at one point in time. So, Rob, when do you arrive in Baltimore?
The first time, 1975.
I told James, you weren't here. I don't remember. I'm 53. I don't remember a life where you weren't on TV. It was you, Mustard,
Jim
Rudy
Mustard.
Miller, Hambrick, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm just off the top of my head. And then over 13, well, obviously Vince and Chris.
Ray Bennett.
By the way, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't tell Jane this. Moeller meets me. Oh, I got to drink when I tell this story. This is going to be good. All right, we're having a margarita. I'm at El Guapo. Moeller meets me, and he's trying to give me self-confidence back in the day. He tells me, you're going to be the next Chris Thomas. That's what he told me. He told me.
I think that's true.
That is true.
Yeah, you are.
When I was
Chris.
13 years old, he told me I was going to be the next Chris Thomas. So when I think of the 70s and watching all of you on TV, and probably wanting to be Vince, probably, more than Chris Thomas, right?
Vince, to me, is the Michelangelo of that style of broadcasting.
My
There's
hero.
None.
No doubt.
He did it first. There was a guy in New Orleans, Hap Lawdy, that did similar, but a New Orleans accent, talks like that. Hey, how you doing down there? Yeah, but he was drunk half the time he was on the air, and he would go all over the place. But Vince, I would go in the studio and just listen to him and watch him.
And he did it without a teleprompter.
No, you never read it.
No teleprompter.
I'm not going to read that teleprompter.
Would not use the teleprompter. I mean, that's remarkable.
What's the name of that left-hander? Rob?
But when I first came, the news director was Ron Kershaw. Said, "Have you ever done sports?" I said, "Yeah." He didn't ask me if I've ever done it on TV. I've never done it on TV. Hell, I'm coming from Jackson, Mississippi to Baltimore, Maryland. I'll tell you anything you want to hear.
Yeah, damn right.
And so I came up here, and I remember turning on the TV. They put me up at the Cross Keys, and I turned on the TV, and it was Super Bowl weekend, and there comes Vince Bagley. I said, oh, my God. I never seen anything like him in my life. I'm out of my league, man. I called my wife at the time. My ex-wife was married before. Hey, man, I got to go back and kiss somebody's boo-hiney because I need to get my job back. I'm out of my league up here, man. They're going to fire me in 2 seconds.
It's funny. You looked at Vince, and you know what's interesting, Rob, and not to blow smoke up you, because I want to talk about what Nestor said, the longevity of your career. We had Jane on, the longevity of her career. What Vince had, and I think this is what's true about television, tell me if you agree or if you think I'm all wet, is that people can instantly tell who's real and who's not.
Yeah.
So you turned on Vince that night and you
knew.
said, that guy's the real deal. If I saw him at the 7-Eleven tomorrow,
same person.
He's going to be the same guy. When people turned on Rob Roblin, they knew Rob Roblin, what you see is what you
If
get.
there's a storm, he'd run out in it.
Right. with the waves come. Well, how did that evolve, Robbie? Let's talk about that. You're the guy.
Television's
the
fun.
waves coming up over the boardwalk.
Yeah.
I mean, my favorite. I don't know if you ever saw this, Nestor, but when Rob retired, Kevin Kamenetz did a video.
Yeah.
And he starts by saying a traditional video.
Hilarious.
He's in the hallway. And he goes, I want to wish my best. And Rob's cameraman, we'll have him talk about Kenny shortly, retires at the same time, Kenny Brown.
Yeah.
And Kevin is going, I just want on behalf of everyone in Baltimore County, I want to congratulate Rob Roblin and Kenny Brown on a wonderful – this just doesn't seem right. And the screen goes black. And the next thing is Kevin – they photoshopped the creative director, Lauren Watley, brilliant job, puts him in the middle of a thunderstorm with a raincoat and a hat, and Kevin's going, now this feels much more like it. And he's wishing Rob all the best.
Well, you mean you were Weather Channel, Snow Patrol,
my God.
right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I had at BAL over the years. See, I left and came back 5 times. I can only function in Baltimore. I tell people all the time, I got a big mouth, I got an attitude, and I got a chip on my shoulder. I fit in perfect here.
Well, there's a legendary story about you that I don't know is true or not, but I hope it's true. And if it is, it's awesome.
No.
But nonetheless.
No, it's not true.
Oh, come on.
I know what it is.
Don't
It's
disappoint me.
It's not true.
Well, it is true. It is true that during a snowstorm, and I swear to God, he knows because I called him right away. I literally thought I was going to throw up. I was laughing so hard. It's hard to come up with something every segment. Rob goes, now I'm going to interview the dog. Am I right?
Yeah.
You went down and interviewed the dog.
Well, he loves animals, Rob Roblin does here. This is your life, Rob Roblin. We're at El Guapo. I'm having a delicious silver margarita. We got chips. We got salsa. We got Damien O'Doherty's here with guests. We've got Alan McCallum coming later. I waited so long to get you on, man. More than anything, I'm just glad you're healthy and doing well.
I'm very lucky.
I mean, all these years, he's told me how, like, this relationship you guys have.
Rob's the best. Rob's the best.
He's done so much for my family, my son.
Stop.
No.
I want to talk about, we came over. I was privileged. Dan Juris invited me over to your farewell party at the station with all the reporters. And it was it was such a nice day, and you got up and spoke. And in true Roblin fashion, as opposed to talking about yourself, you talked about your videographer who had been with you forever, Kenny Brown, and you talked about how important he was to you and what teamwork meant. And for our listeners, share a little bit about your memories of Kenny and what you said that day and how he got you through some tough times.
Kenny, I'll tell you one story. When you have prostate cancer and you have it taken out, you have a problem with incontinence. And I had a problem.
Right on.
And I came back to work, and I had a mistake.
You needed some care.
Yeah. And it was on the story, and I said I was in tears, and I got in the car, and I said, I'm embarrassing myself. I got to quit. I got to quit. No, baby, no. Just stay in here, get yourself together. I'll go do all the interviews and everything. And he went out and did the whole story. And I sat in there and I soiled myself.
You were shook up.
Yeah, I was embarrassing myself. I don't like to be embarrassed. And that's the kind of guy he is. Always there when times are tough. Now, let's talk about the real Kenny. Hey, get out there and say that and shut up. We're down in Ocean City. Man, I'm not going to go out in this weather.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm not going to go out in there. We're down in the big storm going on.
Oh,
I'm going to do it from the patio. I ain't getting wet. You're going out there, and that's where you're going to be, and that's where you're going to go.
We always forget this, man. Roblin's out there in the middle of
waves coming over
Hurricane Hazel, you know.
If you'll look right here on my forehead,
yeah, I see
you can see it. It's it's like rough, like sandpaper.
What happened? Somebody hit your head?
No. It's from bending over like this, doing live shots, and the sand. My forehead's actually sandblasted.
Oh, all right.
You know, so
you're like a statue.
Yeah, but he put me in that. He always said he's dumb. He'll do anything I tell him, and I was right.
Rob,
but everything he had me do helped my career. He saved my. He wrote most of the stuff. He had here, write this. What do you got here? And he was more important than I.
Well, people don't understand.
All I was just another pretty face.
Because those guys are behind the scenes. But and Jane talked about it a little bit about the importance of team. You know, she just wins this huge award, and she gives it away. She talks about it was the team and the atmosphere. Those of you who were at BAL, I mean,
in the modern era, her speech last night was about don't fire these people. We need staff.
Yeah.
We need people.
Yeah.
We can't have a Rob without a Kenny, right? Literally.
Right. Well, talk about that last night.
Well, our company, and I call it, it's still my company, Hearst, is very good about that so far.
Well, Rob, the affection that everyone felt for you that night of December the 19th, 2014, when you walk away.
You've been gone 8 years?
Yeah. That December 19th.
I feel like I saw you last Preakness. I really do.
December 19th, 2014. Donna says goodbye. Everyone says goodbye. And you have to sign off. Talk about that moment when you look back on it. Can you remember that moment?
Yeah, I can remember it. I can't believe how lucky I am. Of all the people I've met in my life, I know no one that's any luckier than I am to have Kenny that taught me, led me, helped me to be at the station. I mean, to be with Jane. I mean, she's a legendary, man. I mean, I had a friend of mine, a police officer. I saw Jane Miller the other day. I was running. I don't want her to get me.
Did Jane know he was coming, or he know Jane was coming?
No.
Okay. I didn't know. Okay.
I always tell Jane loves it. You know why this story works? Because it's 100% true, and your police buddy understands.
Yeah,
my assistant, the famous words was, I told Jane the most feared words in any communication department in the state when my assistant would walk in and say, Don, Jane's on the phone. I'd say, oh, God.
That's a 60 Minutes.
I would always answer the same way. What did we do now? But you worked with great people. You had great teams there.
I did more features than anything else.
How did that evolve? How did Rob Roblin become the fun guy?
He was the fun guy.
He was the fun guy.
You were the fun guy.
Right. I think that, to me, the biggest news story ever in America is what African-American people have done since my childhood. They weren't free to get a job anywhere.
Right.
They weren't free to go to college anywhere. They weren't free to walk down the street on the sidewalk without getting beaten. I saw that with my own eyes. And to see how far so many African Americans have come and contributed and helped our society, it's an amazing story. It's an amazing story. And instead of looking at Baltimore,
and the fight continues, by the way.
Yeah, I know. And I mean, Baltimore City, I love it. I love it. Yeah, it's rough. Yeah, there's some rough people. There are some rough edges. Every place has them. But let me tell you something, man. There was a young cameraman I'm driving through the hood with. I said, you look around here, you see these row houses? You see these people? Maybe a little rough on the outside. But let me tell you something, pal. When there was a damn war, that's who they called, and they won it. I said, I love them. I respect them. You know, and they will be there to cover your back. And that's the way I go to West Baltimore, go down to the rec right now. That's my home.
Oh, no, you're as comfortable. You know, you're a Southern boy that's as comfortable in the city as anyone I've ever met.
And I'm very prejudiced pro-African American people. I mean, I'm really.
Well, you have a diverse family, Rob.
Yeah, well, I have a diverse family too, but I just don't understand it. We're all one. Good Southern men that are raised right, and there are a lot down there. No, you don't talk that way about my brother. You don't use that word around me, pal. Well, no. And there are down there. There's some wonderful people in the South, but there's some, like everywhere, there's bad people.
Well, with these strong beliefs, Rob, what do you make? I mean, you think a lot about the country and its direction. What do you make of the past few years and the former president and the divisive nature of where we are? What's your take on that?
You don't want me to get started.
Yeah, it's like me. You wind me up.
Yeah, I don't associate with
Are
people.
you hopeful or not hopeful?
No, not hopeful at all. Not hopeful at all.
You said you don't associate. I want you to finish that thought.
I don't want. I just don't want to deal with them. If they're heavy to the far right, I don't want anything to do with them. You see, when they say things about people of color, those are my best friends. That's Frank Bond. I take it personal. It's personal. That's my grandson. My daughter-in-law is Nigerian, and I've got two grandsons that are children of color, and that's personal. Jane and I think the same way. We have a lot of Ray Bennett, and if you say anything about Jewish people, I got my buddy Larry Medoff. You don't do that around me. Now, I don't make a scene, and I'm not going to get in a fist fight. When I was younger,
but you're not going to come to my home.
Yeah.
You're not going to be my friend.
No.
I feel similarly. I don't say it much, but I mean, anybody in my world, knows.
Now, when I was younger, I would fist
that's
fight.
an exit strategy in my world.
It makes it,
and it's narrowed my world dramatically, Rob.
Makes
right?
it very,
I mean, I
tough.
talk about Dundalk. I talk about it all. It's narrowed
Dundalk.
my world, and it's had to.
But they did it. They chose it. So I told somebody once.
We chose love.
I mean, you're talking about the far left or the liberals, how soft they are. You don't want to push us. Let me tell you what, man. I've been on the streets in my life. You don't want to push me.
Well, I think of
I'm not tough. I'm not tough at all. But you don't want to push any human being. I used to tell my kids all the time, you see the quiet, nice kids in school, don't push them. Don't get them angry. If they start getting angry, walk away. Because those are the kids that they'll tell you over and over, leave me alone, leave me alone, leave me alone. And you don't push nice people. You don't want to let that go. And I've seen it.
I've been a part of it as well. Yeah.
Well, but it's
some guys
sad.
in Dallas had my hand around their neck at one point. So yeah, I got you.
It's sad. It's sad, but hopefully I'm not very optimistic, but I'm old. It's like you're talking about. Go out and get a beer every once in a while, and old folks sitting in there. Do you go downtown? Not really that much. I don't have any use to. Well, I don't go. I'm afraid. I said, well, I ain't afraid of nothing.
Well, as Nestor said, he may have moved to the county. He's in the city 3 or 4 times a week.
City on Sunday night.
Right.
By the way, I want to promote the Maryland Lottery because they're my partners.
I said, I go to the city when I want to. I love the city.
Right.
Well, so here's my story. I'm sitting down at Mama's on the half shell. We did the show. We did exactly what we're doing with you with some dear friends. Then I gave some tickets away like I did to these people back here. Girl comes up to me at the Chaucer in Highlandtown on Sunday night and says, good-looking girl, young girl. I'm like, she said, I know you. And I'm like, how do you know me? She said, you You gave me a winning lottery ticket the other day.
There you go.
On a half shell.
Betty
So
Boop.
Rob Roblin is here. We're talking about all sorts of important things. We're at El Guapo. I'm having a margarita. Alan McCallum's on deck. Damon O'Doherty's got half a Meriwether Post behind us here. You guys have been at
Great
this a
stuff.
long time, and thank you for coming by.
Man,
Great
Can we
having
do
you,
this
Rob.
more often?
Thanks. Anytime.
Anytime?
Anytime.
All right, man.
We'll have
I've
you
always
back.
liked your work. You know, and when I
Hearing
tell,
that in your voice is going to, freak me out, dude.
when I tell Frank, obviously that's your man.
Dude, I'm
You're
such a
sending me
huge fan
interview.
of yours. You have
We'll
no
have you
idea.
back.
I love
31
my buddy.
years.
Rob Roblin, my
Thanks,
man.
brothers.
Can we
Love
go
you.
to the Preakness and drink together one day?
Yeah, let's go.
If I could go to the Preakness with you with a hat on?
No,
Uh-oh.
let's go. Let's
Put
go.
the hat. I should have worn my Rob Roblin hat today. I didn't think. I've still got the one that Cabinets wore. I've got it in the cupboard.
I've always been jealous of your relationship with Roblin. That's all. I'm going to steal him from you. I am Nestor Weir. Go ahead. What do you-
His brother and I together are dangerous.
I saw that.
I watched Rob one time. I'm on the other side of the gym, and he's not happy with the referee. And the next thing I know, he's taking the walk of shame out of the Catonsville High gym. Rob had been asked to leave
Get out
the
of
gym.
Yeah.
What did he say?
You can leave.
You can leave. Get the heck out. Get the heck out.
I've been a little stronger than
It's
that.
time for
Ladies
you
and
to
gentlemen, Rob Roblin.
On
Thank you
behalf of the
very much.
Maryland Lottery, we're letting ourselves play. Also want to give a shout-out to Jane's folks at Goodwill and our folks as well at Goodwill Industries for sponsoring the Maryland Crab Cake Tour. There is a crab cake involved here. This was brought in. This was shipped over from
Look
State
at
Fair right
you.
across the street. And you like crab cakes,
I
too,
love
Roblin?
them.
All right, man. Here we go. Fork
No,
up.
yo, go ahead.
Fork up.
Dig in, Rob.
All right, man. We got the Maryland Crab Cake Tour presented by our friends at the Maryland Lottery. Well, that's Jumbo Long. Oh, look at what's going
baby.
on in there. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. Look at that crab cake. We never stop talking.
That's good.
Crab cake. Oh, it needs a snowstorm or like a blizzard or, I don't know.